Oren, and I am reviewing American Horror Story 1984. A couple notes. This is my apartment in the background. My mom has currently invaded it. She decided to drop off some stuff, then she decided to do some things in my apartment, and then she said, wait by the car, because you need to drop off some stuff for me. So there's currently stuff, which is this stuff right over here, being dropped off to that apartment. So at some point my mom might come down here and, like, interrupt this video and say, like, put things in the trunk and stuff, but until then, I have a lot of things to do today, and I was just sitting in the lobby, so I thought I would just review some more. So normally I've been doing movies, but I do really kind of have a bit more of a passion, I think, for TV, just especially in the kind of last decade, in this sort of serialized age. American Horror Story is a film I have written about a lot, or rather a TV show. It is definitely, usually pretty bad, I don't know if I'm going to curse here, but bad S-word insane. It is, I mean, just generally they have, like, one source of horror, and then two sources of horror, and then they just, like, there was that season Asylum where they had, like, you know, they had, like, a witch, and they had, like, some weird creature in the woods, and then aliens, and then pretty much everyone was, like, evil. Like, there wasn't any control or, like, any, like, litmus test of anyone who was normal in it at some point. That was like the jumping the shark moment, and that was only season 2. My favorite, I haven't seen all of them, definitely. Some of them are just way too campy and stupid. There's one with Lady Gaga and Matt Bonner that, like, I think jumped the shark like 30 minutes in. It was just like, this was stupid. I like the Roanoke one. I saw some episodes of that. That actually made my top 12 one of the years. And I think my favorite is the one with the witches in New Orleans. Generally, I usually get off the train pretty fast. And I was pretty much not really watching any of this stuff until, I don't know, I got free FX and I started watching 1984. And I kind of like the kind of low production value kind of, you know, thing about it. I was worried originally that it would just be one night in the woods. I'm like, come on, get daylight, get the campers here already. But two things that it did very smart is that it jumped time pretty reasonably when things would have slowed down, and it jumped and it only stayed to 9 episodes. I think if it went on really long, it could have stretched things out. I don't know if the film is definitely prestige. At times the thing is very, 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 very campy. It's, you know, it's just ridiculous. At times it's very Ryan Murphy flavored, celebrating, like, you know, one of his themes is sort of a gay director is celebrating a lot of, like, sexual nonconformity, which, whatever floats your boat, as long as it doesn't sort of, like, override the plot, I guess. This was a story that featured, I guess, a fairly it didn't really kind of, like, just be like, okay, we're gonna have trans and whatever people, because it wasn't as a part of the story, but it certainly had a lot of elements that were, I guess, a lot of fun. I generally go dating back to, as I mentioned in my Aladdin video, I was a very scared kid. I was scared of all kinds of things, so I generally did not like seeing people stab each other and being scared in the dark, and, like, so I don't have a long history of going back, and I was probably in first grade or kindergarten when the 80s ended, so, like, yes, no, I was not watching slasher films when I was watching Sesame Street, so I don't know what this is referencing, but, you know, oddly enough, that doesn't actually matter, because you know what it is. You know that it's referencing something, and it's very stylistic specific. You have a sense that they did a lot of aerobics, and maybe cocaine was what they were doing. I don't think the people that I knew, unfortunately, were doing cocaine in the 80s, but, you know, or whatever. They were also, like, you know, wearing their clothes a certain way, and I don't know what other 80s references. They were listening to music with synthesizers. They were, I guess maybe AIDS, maybe pornography on cassette tapes was going on at the time. So the first 3 or 4 episodes really disturbed me, but I was like, because the Jingles character is just really dark, and I'm like, this guy, could we please, like, get rid of him already? Then it, you know, twisted where it was like, okay, the Jingles character isn't, like, the worst guy. There are a bunch of competing forces of bad, and we got to sort them all out. There's a night attacker who's, like, powered by Satan. I don't know how him and Satan ever became BFFs. What's going on? I do not know. Like, and then he I mean, that's kind of the campiest element of the whole thing. Like, couldn't he at least have had, like, a sort of like an evil god or satanic god? But he's just like, oh, no, it's Satan. It's just, like, evil. The Margaret character is really interesting. She is the camp director who's, like, ungodly and good, but she's also really awful. But she secretly is the exact opposite of godly and good. I don't know. Right now I'm not looking at the camera because I'm trying to find my mom. Where the hell is she? I don't know. But anyway, she's like, I think it's maybe a thinly veil-threaded religion, which is clearly ineffective at satire because, like, there's no rational justice for murdering people. The other problem with the switch between Mr. Jingles from the worst guy ever to, like, not that bad of a guy who was framed for the murders. Oops, did I spoil something? Okay, I'm gonna have to say at 5:50, spoiler alert, is that Mr. Jingles, pointing to you, Mr. Jingles was murdered a bunch of people for absolutely no reason, and it was completely unforgivable. I'm not sure why he deserved to pay a price. Absolutely. Like, I understand, like, it seemed like he had some discernment because there was one guy who was, like, a little bit fat and antisocial, like the earlier version of Mr. Jingles, a.k.a. Benjamin, but he murdered his other two campmates for doing absolutely nothing but just enjoying Mr. Jingles Day. Who doesn't want to dress up as a serial killer and go out in the woods? And then he murdered Birdie for, I don't know why. He murdered a guy just for peeping in the shower. Like, if this was a deep show with characters with wants and needs, can't we ask ourselves, why was the guy who was peeping in the shower on two guys, why was he? Was this guy, like, some sort of version of, like, a self-proclaimed biblical prophet? His motives were basically that a psychologist's freedom from prison to watch him kill people, but I'm not specifically sure what convinced him to kill people. Part of the bargain was that he got out of jail. That must be nice, but I don't specifically know why he's killing people. There are also just a lot of really kind of interesting flavors of characters. Xavier, there's Chet, there's Ray. Chet is a snowboarder who got into acting. Good for him. Ray is actually a really bad guy, but there's one really kind of very angelic hero to the story who is Brooke, and, like, there's, and Ray, I guess, gave the gift of, like, sex to Brooke, I guess, when she hadn't, but Ray abandoned his other people at the very first sign of trouble. He got on a motorcycle and went away. He should be ostracized from everyone else, as far as I know. And then he's given a heroic ending, but again, also the one character and the evil lady gets married, and he knows that she's evil. So I don't remember why that happened. If anyone wants to fill me in the comments on these kind of like head scratchers. So we're at an 8:10 mark. I try to keep the videos at 8 minutes, but for some reason I actually so the way I watched this was I watched the first 3 or 4 minutes and I was like, okay, I just want to kind of know how this ends. I'm just kind of maybe like watch a couple events. I'll watch like episode 8, and then I actually was so interested in it that I watched every episode from 1 to 9. So it was definitely very engaging. It felt very tonally consistent. It felt that they were laying out events at just the right pace. I mean, to create tension and horror or whatever this genre is, tension, you have to keep things moving at just the right pace. Not just like adding things into the mix just for no reason at all. So I really liked it. Alright, goodbye.